Good evening, folks. This is Deb and Dave, and this is your short take. And tonight's short take, before we get to the big show, is talking about why every election in every state is important. It doesn't matter how big the state is, how small the election is, what size of the district it is. They're all important now. Every single seat, every single position, every single time you go to the polls, it's critical. So here's Dave. He's talking about Rhode Island.
So before I talk about Rhode Island, I want to remind everyone about the red wave and how the Republicans were talking about how they were going to take over and change everything drastically. That didn't happen. But what they were talking about is the importance of elections and the importance of every election. Now, according to some Republicans, this is an ABC News report by Tal Axelrod a few weeks ago or a couple weeks ago. The the Republicans are saying that, oh, these special elections, don't put too much in these special elections. There's a reason. The Democrats are seriously overperforming, where they would have a major deficit. All of a sudden, they're coming extremely close to winning in some districts, or where they might have had a slim or moderate chance. Sometimes they even win, which is why the Democrats are taking every single election seriously, including an election or a primary election coming up in a week. I believe it's September 5th. It's the Rhode Island election, Rhode Island first, to replace David Cicilline, who stepped down in June to run a large nonprofit organization. So why is this particular district important? Because whoever wins this district primary is probably going to get elected, and historically it shows that this particular district, whoever wins this, may be in there for a while and could help shape national policy. Now, we feel that this election is so important that we might dedicate a whole show just to this particular special election, especially given the fact that next week the primary will be in a couple of days. I want people to understand what is at stake here. And right now there are two people who are considered front runners. However, understand that the people who are running, and that some of these people will probably run for state seats or local seats. So you need to pay attention to every single Democratic candidate who is running in this district. I'm just going to do a brief overview of a couple of candidates, just a couple, but we'll go through it next week, probably, unless something major happens with national politics. And as you know, anything can happen, especially with what's going on in Georgia.
And all that's tomorrow, by the way.
Right, exactly.
That's tomorrow.
There's Gabe Amo, who is literally of direct African American descent. His parents were Ghanaian and Liberian. He had an internal poll and has put that out. We don't really put that much stock into polls, but his point is that diversity is good in the primary, and he has a shot to beat the person who is considered the progressive frontrunner, and this guy named Rugenberg. So what I'll say is, as I said, he's of African American descent, and you may say, well, how many African Americans are in Rhode Island? 5% of Rhode Island is African American, but you have to understand too that Amma would not be representing just African Americans, but all minorities as well, because he has a shared experience with other minorities, whether it be discrimination, blatant discrimination, hidden discrimination, that kind of thing. So there are some numbers here, which I'm not going to go into, but when you add all of them together, then it becomes a bigger number and a bigger factor in the primary. Now you have Aaron Rugenberg, who has some major endorsements. He's endorsed by Bernie Sanders. He's endorsed by Jamie Raskin. He's endorsed by the Working Families Party, Our Revolution, a couple of unions, the Communications Union, a local association of flight attendants, as well as Moms Demand Action. He's also walked with Planned Parenthood. There's a Food and Water Watch, other ones. There's also something I didn't even know, and I put something in here about it, Oil Chain for United States. This organization pushes to reduce the use of fossil fuels. So Rugenberg is, right now, he's considered the leader. There is one other candidate that I want to mention. And his name is Stephen Carey. Deb and I have had this conversation. I consider this individual a dino, a Democrat in name only, because he considers himself a conservative Democrat. We don't need another conservative Democrat. We have a couple of them already, and we don't need to deal with that. The two things that came out, one was in 2019, he voted against pro-choice legislation, but he just lost an endorsement from an anti-abortion organization because he turned around and said it was a mistake. I'm sorry, we've had enough of these people who say, no, I was wrong. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to do that again. What happens when he's in office? The other thing is that he talks about he's pro gun, and he talks about AR-15, how AR is not an assault rifle, blah blah blah. We've gone through that ad nauseum. That's a right-wing talking point. So just be careful.
Right. Isn't that the guy who said he didn't believe the government should be in our gun cabinet?
Yes, that's the guy.
I think he should not be in our cabinet. That's what I think.
Exactly. So, and Deb and I have over time basically said, for the most part, if there's a Democrat running, you vote for whoever is in the who is ever in the primary, and the Democrat has to win. This guy, we cannot allow him, in my opinion, and I'm sure in Deb's opinion, we can't allow him to win the primary. I don't think he will, but just keep him in mind in future elections. He's not going to go away.
Right.
So that's a brief overview of that election, but every single one of these elections is important, and sometimes they do fall through the cracks, especially the special elections.
We don't want that to happen because, honestly, David Ciciline's district is bright blue.
Right.
It should not be taken for granted, however, not in these times. And everybody needs to get out and vote because
Rep Casey, or a Casey cannot become a representative.
right, and not only that, but whoever wins this will probably win again in 2024. So
Right.
let's choose wisely here.
This is another one of those districts. I believe it was District 10 in New York, where Goldman won. This is another one of those districts where people are saying that this person, whoever gets in, can help dictate future policy.
Yeah.
So pay attention to this race. We may do a whole show on it, and that's why.
Right. We need people in there who are going to stand behind the codification of Roe v. Wade. Roe, the original Roe. That's what we need.
Okay. And stand behind it because it's right, not because it's popular at the time.
Right.
That's what makes me afraid with Stephen Casey, especially with the history of Supreme Court nominees saying, no, we won't take away your abortion rights.
That's below.
We understand. Right.
Yeah, we're not listening to that anymore.
We're not doing that anymore.
No.
So just understand, we do not, that's one of the few Democratic candidates we are not going to stand behind.
Right.
And why.
Yeah.
So that's what we have for the short show. Be very, Rugenberg may actually eventually be considered a member of the squad, whether it be, honorary or whatever. We'll talk about the squad in our premiere show and our big show. The squad, I want to say this too. The squad is not a pack. It's not a formal group. It's a loosely based group of people who have the same ideology and the same almost mindset, I would say. They're very vocal and they're very tenacious and they're very active. Every single one of them.
And they are the future.
And they are the future.
All right, gang. We'll see you shortly.
Yep.